Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the metal markets. I'm your host, Mark Stoker D. We're going to have a look at what the markets are doing after this incredible news that came overnight. If you're new here, please familiarize yourself with the risk disclaimer that that Bruno posted earlier in chat, so that we're all on the same page. I've been with Topstep for almost 11 years at this point in some shape and form. And I was their first female trader. I was the first live account on Topstep X, so a lot of firsts there. But let's have a look at these levels. So obviously we had the ceasefire happening and crude oil smashed all the way down. Metals went up, equities went massively up. This is the classic repricing situation. So some people will be going, oh wow, massive gap up, let's fade that. So whenever the price goes into entirely new levels as a result of some kind of a macro change, it's very rare to see a full reversal unless they say, no, actually ceasefire not on, we're still smashing each other. So I wouldn't bank on some massive reversal the other way. So how do we approach this? Well, there's a couple of ways. First thing, we need to have a look at where the developing values are. If you look at how crude oil is structured right now, it's kind of like one big long liquidation, and they've settled in an area between some of these weaker sort of call walls and a bit of a support put wall between 92 and 91, where they've established a new developing value. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking at for crude oil, but just a little bit of caution, because I've noticed that some of the correlations that we've had, especially between ES and GC, they are now pretty much non-existent as we're starting the day. Of course, this may change, but for now, I would be thinking of maybe looking at gold versus ES as two separate products rather than everything going one way or opposite of it, because we've had some news that has caused this decoupling of the correlation to occur. Like I said, if they keep going with the headline risk, we may see those correlations come back. But as it stands right now, when I'm making this recording, we are looking at some decoupling. One thing that is relevant is that unfortunately equities and gold are still fairly negatively correlated, so we still have minus 0.8 factor of correlation between them. So if you're thinking of trading crude oil and ES, just make sure that you're not trading them at the same time, because that will be double exposure and a whole bunch of trouble if your one trading idea goes wrong. Now, looking at gold, we do have this really large put wall sitting at 4,800. That is where I expect the dealers to maybe come back, to maybe push gold back up. But the entire structure is actually heavily inside the Tokyo range, Asia range, however you want to call it. So we haven't really exited, and we need some new areas to see where the price is actually going to react, right? So when I look at gold, like I said, 4,800 comes up as a pretty relevant level. Below that, we have a put wall at 47.52. Again, reaching that might be a bit of a stretch because this was a reaction to the news. So something that you could consider is what I've just said. So basically looking at some of these call walls and put walls to remain reactive throughout the day. Now, we are still largely in negative gamma environment, which means that you may see a smash through the levels and then a reclaim. Gold is still incredibly volatile. So let's just have a look at the ATR today. I'm just going to have a look at it on the just on a 30-minute time frame, but I like to change to 9-period average because I'm looking at it from a 30-minute point of view, and I don't want to mix whatever has happened already in Asia with what we've got now. So even now we have 186 ticks for the average candle size on a 30-minute time frame. That is still fairly massive. That means on 1 micro, if you want to run a decent trade that will give you a chance to stay in for some bigger movement, you will probably need about 200 tick stops just to make sure you're not shaken out by the intra movement in a 30-minute time frame. The 30-minute time frame is fairly important because you have institutions that kick off their positions at every 30-minute mark. So therefore, whenever a 30-minute time frame ends, you typically see a push either direction, and that tends to be the defining sort of few seconds that could kind of make or break the setup, which is why I don't like to get involved in the middle of a 30-minute time frame, even though sometimes I will front run a trade because of something that I might have seen on tape or something. But for the most part, I will still wait for the 30-minute time frame to end before I figure out whether I want to keep the trade or not. So that is gold to the downside. Now upside we have 5,000 still, which is very far away. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that we will be back to 5,000 by the end of the week, but for now that's so far away that I don't think I want to count my chickens too much. Asia high is an interesting one because we had 14,900 level, which is not super strong, but it is a moderate call wall, so that could cap some movements today as we head into COMEX. And the whole structure is just floating in and around VWAP. So even though we're below VWAP, the VWAP is pretty flat, so I don't really find it terribly useful. Especially if it's like a more range day, more neutral day, which can happen after these repricing events. So rather than looking for some massive movement to either continue, massive breakouts, I will say that I'm personally expecting a bit of a hangover day and just kind of prices meandering in between the already established areas after the big news. So that's how I'm going to be approaching the rest of the day. All right, let's have a look at copper. Now, what does this move do for our copper on the daily chart? Let's have a look. Another push outside of the constantly accumulating area. So you could call this rally, and then we're reaching some supplies. So we're reaching a higher volume area, whereas all of this was pretty low volume. We're now rising into an area where further movement might be a little bit tricky. So again, you can see that already as they tried to go higher above 580, they were not successful. They didn't even reach 580, I don't think. But that would be like if I run a small scalp long, 580 would probably be the highest price where I would want to look at some profit taking. And then vice versa, if I can't find a long trade up to that point, maybe some scalps from 580. So it's an interesting situation on the daily chart. So a lot of congestion prior in this area, which is reflected on the volume profile. This is the visible range volume profile, and I would expect at least some time to go by, even if it does go higher eventually, but we're probably going to spend a little bit of time to chill in the higher volume area before they make the final decision, right? Shorting equities, again, I can see Abed is saying, I'm tempted to short NQ, but it didn't make a lower low. Like I said, I'm not an equities trader, I'm a commodities trader, but because of all the stuff that's happening, we can have a look at the levels in NQ as well. They won't be on this chart, but I can just run you through them. Now, Nasdaq has quite a lot of space between its own levels, which is different than ES. ES actually has a lot more bunched up levels in around this area, but Nasdaq actually has a pretty clean outlook when it comes to the weighted levels. So 25,500, very far away. To the downside, we have 24,600. So that's quite a distance. But in between that, we have the round number of 25,000, where quite a bit of puts are located. So obviously, if something goes wrong with this deal, there's a lot of people who are thinking, well, I want to have a protected put below the 25,000 level. Again, I would probably look at 25,000 as an area of current post-news edge. And right now, the developing value, if I take out the massive movement, because that's not very useful, and see how the market is behaving at the moment, we have the developing value high sitting at 25,229, and then value low somewhere around 25,082. So yeah, that's an interesting development. But yeah, so London has extended the initial balance to the upside on NQ, but they're losing steam. They're definitely losing steam here. So yeah, not too dissimilar from the rest of the market. So we had a big move in one direction, and then basically pretty quiet. I would say that gold is probably moving more than anything else post-news. So perhaps gold could be something to consider today for myself personally. Again, not financial advice. I'm just talking you through what I'm thinking. And yeah, so let's have a look at some chat questions. How am I feeling today? Hopefully pain-free. I woke up a little bit weird today, but I'm due to increase the dosage, so we'll see how that goes. Luis Martinez says short on MCL from 107 has finally made me qualify for a payment. That is great news, so make sure you take that payment. Put some money in your pocket. Just make sure not to take too much out, because obviously you want to leave some working capital for the trading. You don't want to put your back against the wall. Brad Sims has joined us. Brad is one of my chameleonaires from season 2. So good to see you. Dave's Pirate Life. He's one of my market stalkers, so that's excellent. Is that a scotch at the bottom of your chart blue? No, that's just a correlation quotient. So you basically place the correlation indicator, and then you have to define what you're going to correlate it with. So right now I'm trying to see the correlations between gold and ES, then between crude oil and ES, and then finally between copper and gold, just to see how strong those correlations are. Let's just remove this for a second. Alright, let's tackle crude oil. So obviously crude oil is the market to track these days, even if you don't trade it. I'm looking at a potential downside movement back towards these two levels at 92 and 90. 90 is a big gamma wall, and then we have a 92 area as a sort of a weaker put wall. But because they're so close together, We actually had this similar situation yesterday where a whole bunch of levels were up from like 115 up to 117. So yesterday, if you were here, I did say that 117 or thereabouts is probably going to be the edge of whatever they're trying to do with crude oil, and that's exactly what happened. We did a beautiful failed auction after 9 a.m. Central and into the London close, so there was a bit of push-pull around 116 and 117, but eventually it kind of rolled over and brought me my target at 115, so it wasn't the biggest trade, but it was a pretty decent trade. Overnight, I didn't trade. This was this morning, this P&L. And yes, it was a short crude. So what do we have now? If we rise back up and we get into this area of 97 and 98, remember it's negative gamma, so it's all due to like slip around like crazy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like a bit of a attempted move through 98 and then to start reversing. Now, crude oil reversals are very tricky because they tend to take a bit of time, so it will be difficult for anyone to stay in unless you understand how crude oil moves, and crude oil is a double-sided sword, and it's very scary when it gets itself into this situation. But again, I'm kind of thinking maybe a bit of a hangover day today. Nothing crazy unless we get more news, right? So if we get some drastic change, if suddenly they're like, no, actually ceasefire off the table, but for now, I would just be expecting a little bit of settling of the price and just drifting in between some of these more obvious options levels. Deeyana is asking me what trade have I taken already. It was a short crude. It was somewhere from ballpark this 96.66, and then I took a 3 micro crudes just on the way down. When I was doing that trade, there was a whole bunch of orders around 94.50. I don't think they're going to be there now because obviously they traded out, but if I can just show you on this volume profile on the dome, here they were, so you can see 869 contracts traded at 94.50, but if you also look at some of the surrounding ones, you had 470, 350, but by far the biggest price traded at the moment was 94.50, and they had like wedged 124 contracts, 100 contracts, 130 contracts, like massive amount of contracts across multiple prices. Now that usually tends to be very difficult to move further unless they initiate new positions, but somebody was obviously bailing out of their positions, and it was done across like about 5 different prices. So I'm gonna take an educated guess and say that it was an institution exiting some positions, and now we've just settled around 94.50. So for now there's nothing else to do. Crude oil does have a neutral day type, but it is a little bit asymmetrical because the downside is bigger than the upside. But we're building structure, so this is not really a strong auction anymore. It's just kind of meandering right around the area where the large number of contracts were. So yeah. What time Eastern New York does she come to a trading desk to start charting trading? Well, when I started this stream. But, I do look at it as soon as I wake up because I have to post the options levels that we calculate in a particular way to my Discord, and then obviously I need to start having a look at what's happening. But I generally rarely trade super early. Even this trade, I don't think it was that early. And it's unusual for me to trade right from the London Open. If I do any trades, if I'm awake before the London Open, sometimes I will do a late Asia trade on the account of Shanghai Exchange, getting the take profit move in the opposite direction. That's metals mostly, but nothing today. So this was a little bit of a educated guess that the downside is going to be stronger because we had all those areas lower down. So yeah. Abid says closed Aussie dollar short. We'll wait for a later opportunity. Lately I've been on the wrong side of every trade. Maybe I'll just do small scalps going forward since it has high leverage. Well, if most of your trading ideas are not working, doing scalps is not really the issue there. I think I would have a look at the trade location. I will zoom out to like larger time frames to get some context, and then go from there rather than torturing yourself with tiny little scalps that ultimately won't be necessarily the ones that bring you over the hump, so to speak, to get back to scratch and then to start generating alpha again. So yeah, some bit more critical thinking there is what I would do in that situation. If I'm like constantly wrong, I'm like, well, what's going on? Is this like a range? Or I'm just like plain wrong on the movement? Or, you know, am I maybe using too small a stop so I'm not in long enough for the trade to do what it's supposed to do? You know, there's many things that you can critically do. Mo is asking me, would you buy gold at these levels? So not this far out. If we ever retest 4,800, maybe. I am pleased to see that 4,800 is being reactive. So we're kind of in a bit of a price discovery mode here. Like, where is gold going to start reacting? We know that it reacted already from ballpark 48.86. And then ultimately they were not able to hold above 48.50. So 48.50 immediately, because of that, becomes either an upside target or potential for some scalpy shorts. Again, whenever we have neutral day types, I do tend to scalp a lot more, so I won't be holding on to like 2R, 3R, 4R. No, I will take whatever they give me. So, you know, if I'm right on a particular direction in a neutral day type and I get like 100 ticks out of it, I'm happy. It's like, it's not, you know, oh, hey, I have to have 2R. On a neutral day, that's more range bound. You cannot hold on to large risk reward. So you have to go with the situational awareness, move into more scalpy mode, and then try to get the extremes of the range and then a reversal back to the middle. I very rarely run neutral day trades all the way from one side to the opposite side expecting some perfect rotation. It doesn't work that way. And in fact, one side will always be a little bit stronger. So we had to account for that, right? Eloisa says, good morning, good morning, good morning. Very good to see you here. But yeah, so technically, Mo, yes, gold would be a buy for me, but I also want to have a decent amount of space between the middle of the range and VWAP. They just so happen to be pretty close together. So POC from the developing London value is currently sitting at 48.30. That means that for this trade, this doesn't really have much profit margin, and VWAP, even when it's in the middle of the range, can cause a lot of trouble, so it's really not the most ideal area to get involved. Neutral day means that you really want to stay away from the middles as your trade location, so you need to go further out, try and snipe it as close as possible from the highs and the lows. And currently the high really is Asia high, but we've had a Shanghai high at 48.72. So this kind of zone between, let's say, 48.75 all the way to 4900 will be kind of like trying to go for a short, but also being very aware that the reaction to the news was to the upside. So therefore that will be a riskier trade to take. If we ever migrate back down to 4800 and maybe a little bit lower, that would be great. Now, in the event that gold does move quite a bit and we get all the way down to Tokyo low, we do have a moderate put wall around 47.50. So that zone would be where I would maybe consider becoming a buyer and then maybe getting a bigger swing. But it really depends how we arrive there. You know, is it going to be really choppy, so creating like staircases on the way? Or is it going to be a nice smooth drop, which tends to open up the potential for a nice smooth mean reversion as well. So it really, you know, puts a different twist on how the price arrives to your level. Catherine K is saying good morning from North Dakota. Welcome. Where do I get my data for my mega put wall on GC? From the actual options chain. So I usually, I have algorithms on the back end that I run for like other purposes, but basically I have a proprietary way of looking at a bunch of Greeks around particular strikes, and then I have a calculation to weigh them by importance, if that makes sense. So a good stepping stone would probably be Mentor Q, but they do kind of mix in some zero DTs, which I don't think they're too relevant on commodities because commodities are generally pretty thin, and any kind of zero DTs, even though they happen daily, they will be a lot less relevant in the way, I do things. So yeah. Do I post the options data anywhere? Yes, we do have a trading view indicator. I have a very small kind of Discord community, mainly for like the gold members, but we have just opened it up to a joint kind of membership of Market Stalker's highest membership monthly that basically ties into the Discord levels and give you access. So it was the easiest way to do things. So it's not on Topstep, it's actually my own company, Market Stalkers. And I actually have a YouTube, Market Stalkers, which not many people seem to know about. But I do have, almost like 19,000 people on there. I haven't been super active on there in the last sort of 3-4 years because of my health problems. But I'm hoping for that to change if my health kind of holds up. So fingers crossed. But yeah, so we do have a little text channel called Anchored Levels or Anchor Levels. And every morning I will post it myself. Now we do have some more automated parts that have ADR and ASR levels that kind of post automatically 2-3 times a day. However, for the options, I did not do the automation just yet because that has to be like a separate bot that scrapes something, then post levels. So I'm doing it myself, usually between 8 and 9 a.m. in the morning, London time. So, yeah. The Righteous One says, good morning, good morning, good morning. So, yeah, they are out there precisely because people were like, hey, D, how do I get your levels? And, Mentor Q is amazing to just start with this whole dealer positioning side of things in trading. But I always found that there's too many levels. So I'm like, okay, I can just go to GEX 1, 2, and 3 and the Gamma Walls. But then I've noticed that some of the levels that I'm kind of weighing in a different manner, they tend to give me more situational awareness, if that makes sense. So I don't take any level in question. I just take the ones that have slight anomalies in the Greeks, and that's what I'm interested in personally. So yeah. Catherine says, I have a question. If I stay at micros, like all the coaches have said, it's going to take me a month in these markets today to actually pass my evaluation. What's your best advice to get through this? Okay, so Catherine, I'm going to guess that you're more on the scalpy side, and that you're using stops versus risk reward that is pretty tiny, and it's not allowing you to make more than maybe about $50-$100 a trade. Let me know if this is not correct. But in high volatility, you have higher ranges available. So micros for me are absolutely amazing because I can grab 200, 300, 400 ticks per trade. If I run a swing trade in this environment because I recognize that there is a swing potential, we're talking over 1,000 ticks. Even on one micro, that will be anywhere from like 400 to 1,000 profit on one micro. Kick that up to 2 and 3 micros and you've got some really decent days, right? So it's some people have said, take see money, take money environment. I would kind of agree to a point, but at the same time, if you see that the movement away from a swing level on a large time frame is orderly rather than a tape bomb, that tends to be something else. It tends to be a technical move outside of the whatever's going on, and then any kind of tape bomb that might come in will just push it to my options levels anyway, right? It just makes it faster. But obviously that's a whole different level of skill if you're still learning and you can't quite switch lanes like that. I'll be a scalper one day, be a swing trader the next. It is difficult. It is, right? So I fully understand that. But maybe I would look into trade locations and making them a little bit stronger so that the position can survive long enough to give you a bit more out of it, so rather than aiming for like 20 points in NQ or whatever you're trading, because I don't know what you trade, maybe now we can aim for 50 and 60 points. This is the beauty of higher volatility environments, because you have that as an option statistically, and therefore you don't have to nitpick on like just taking 10 points, 20 points here and there. Now, before tariffs, before all of this Iran thing kicked off, because we've had 2 years of really unusual price movement. First tariffs last year, now the Iran conflict. And that has brought, extraordinary volatility into the space. But the setups still work. Like the way I'm looking at it through my framework, failed auctions on crude oil after 9 a.m. Central and into the London close, they're still there. It's just that the stop loss required to stay in on them as things are massively moving, it's probably more closer to 150 ticks, 200 ticks, and then you just wait for the drop and you would take 1 R, 1.5 R rather than waiting for 300 ticks to go by. So to me, I tend to lower the targets to a still statistically viable 1.5 R, but I do expand my stops to the point that I can encompass at least one full 30-minute movement. And this is where the ATR can help you. See these ATRs down here? Well, what's crude oil saying right now? It's saying $1.20. What's that in ticks? 120 ticks. So that will be like the stop loss. Just like scaling your stops to the volatility. I know that Coach Paul has a different way of looking at things. So he goes down to a 5-minute time frame, uses a standard 14 ATR, and then he will double the 5-minute ATR, and that becomes the size of his stop. So that way you will have a way to kind of scale your stops to whatever the product is doing. You need to have your stops scalable, and then obviously if you can identify a smaller opportunity, so smaller stop needed, you can increase the size somewhat in order to have a similar risk per trade in dollar amounts. But when you increase the stops, then you also have to lower the position size so that you don't mess up the whole risk model by risking too much. So the risk per trade still has to be fairly even no matter what happens, and this is where micros versus minis are actually excellent to control that, right? It is one of the few things that we can control in the markets. What's the size of your stop, and what position size you can do. Anything else is just like All right. A winning position trading saying take the month. Well, it's not a get rich quick game. I don't think that Catherine is looking to go that path. I think she's actually asking some incredibly clever questions, right? This is a true issue. If you're only able to generate 50 or 60 bucks a trade, and you're not doing a million trades per day, yeah, it's difficult to pass the combine. So Catherine, I would probably stick to a 50k, not 150k, especially seeing that you're more on the more novice trader side. So just do the easiest combine that has a fairly easy drawdown to target ratio. That's basically you look at what target is needed versus how much drawdown they give you, and anything under 2, ideally 1.5, 1.8, that tends to be easier to pass. Anything over 2 is for very more experienced traders who can really be confident in what they're doing, and we know that we can make the 9 grand in some sort of a normal time rather than spending 9 months trying to get to 9 grand. So that's not useful for anybody. So yeah. The righteous one says on the 30-minute your stop will be 2 times the ATR. No. So for me, I have another way. I actually look at average session ranges, and then I have a particular formula that makes me scale it, which I'm obviously not going to just give out because it's mine. It is mine. Nobody can have it. But basically the ATR 9 on a 30-minute time frame would be your stop, not times 2. That's Coach Paul on a 5-minute chart, and ATR 14. So let's make that clear. So the way of scaling stops for you guys that brings you the closest number to the one that I usually get would be 1 30-minute ATR on a 9 period. That's your stop. Coach Paul, 5-minute ATR, 14 period, ATR times 2. Okay, that's his stop. So pick whichever poison suits you better. Alright, let's have a look. Do you swing trade with your own money or a prop firm? Just wanting to swing trade. I do swing trading through options. I have stopped doing outright swing trades for many years now. Primarily, this kind of came around during COVID where I could see the swings happening, but I just couldn't figure out, like I could figure out intraday trades that they were amazing. But for any kind of larger holds, because the news was also hitting left, right, and center, I found it very difficult to trade with an actual stop loss because the move would still happen, but maybe you'll be shaken out. So my solution to that was to start doing swing trading through options. And so yeah, it's been about 5-6 years now, and I don't remember the last time I held a swing trade into the overnight. I really don't, it's been so long. But yeah, I do intraday swings if the day sets up for that. Now, those sorts of days usually come from much larger orientation areas, such as daily and weekly supply and demands. So if you're in the middle of the range, there's nothing to do there. But let's hypothesize we get all the way up to 620. Well, maybe at that point I might run some kind of a... Again, depends on what's happening. On crude oil, I used to run these amazing short calls as soon as we reach the top of the range. Now that's obviously changed. But, maybe running a long put would be an option. But I always run the long options trades with a date, at least 20 days to expiry. And yet I always take them off within a few days. Why? Because then the time decay doesn't hit you as much. And if you identify the movement within the first 3 days of executing the option, you kind of get the most benefit from it. Mo is asking, do I offer option swing signals on my Discord? I do not offer options or any kind of signals whatsoever. I do not have a signal service. I'm not a CTA. I'm a trader just like you guys. I'm right sometimes, I'm wrong other times. I have never, I'm Series 3 qualified, but I have no desire ever to become a CTA personally. That would involve trading other people's money. The closest we get to that is mechanical algorithms that we lease to certain institutions. But that's a whole other part of another business that has nothing to do with prop and is really not that, how would I say it? It is cost prohibitive for retail, let's put it that way. So no signals from me ever. If anyone approaches you anywhere, whether it's through some weird Discord DM, or something on Twitter or something on Instagram, and I have had impersonators before, just know that I will never ever DM you asking you to sign up for signal service. The only thing that you can find what I offer from the point of education, but no signals, is already on my YouTube channel. Okay, so we do have a course, and whilst it's not the cheapest, because we don't want time wasters, we want action takers. It is also not the most expensive by at all. It's well within sort of like, okay, it's a little bit more expensive, but not so much to actually harm you, and so that you have to like take out a second mortgage. I think that will be, exceptionally silly to do, and a little bit predatory. So I will always try to keep the pricing relatively efficient for the retail side. But yeah, so no signals from me. Do not fall for that. I do not have signals whatsoever. All right. Unrelated to trading, do you have chameleons or just like the light? So I did have lizards before, and I've had them for a really long time. So I had geckos, and we had one chameleon, but unfortunately they're all in the eternal hunting grounds now because they were very old. And since then, we decided not to get any more reptiles. I do love the lizards. I don't know why I'm obsessed with them, but I do love them. When I was a kid, I used to catch them with my dad. Weirdo D. And then when I was an adult, I decided that I wanted to have some lizards. But over the years, I've always had dogs as well. And now I have 8 beautiful dogs, which might be 7 this year because one of our doggos is coming to... basically, he's 13-and-a-half-year-old Cavalier, and he's got problems with his heart. It's well managed, but I'm kind of noticing that he's starting to struggle, so I don't know how much time we have with him. However, he's had a beautiful life. He's been to Spain, he's been to France, he's been, all over the place. He's gone to doggy school, and since he was 6 months old. And so he's had a beautiful life. I'm still going to be super sad, so I'm probably going to be here bawling my eyes out, going, Lady Cavalier. So yeah, do expect that at some point this year. If I don't cry for anything else apart from my animals. So yeah, what does that say about me? I don't know, psychopath? Just joking. Before anybody starts quoting me as this ultra serious person, right? Kangar is saying, good morning all. Does anyone know where I can get historical S&P settlement prices? Troops actually answered you, CME website. That is a very, very good source for many, many different data points. Do I want to see a higher low in place before entering a long? Honestly, I'm not really planning longs at the moment. I would like to see a bit of a shakeout underneath the 4,800 because of the negative gamma, and then maybe a turnaround, but not now. So I've done my slightly riskier punt already this morning, which sadly came a little bit earlier than I expected. So the plan now is to see how this 4,800 level behaves as we get into the COMEX Open, because it's going to be interesting, right? And right now, because the probabilities of everything are 50-50 with all of this headline risk looming, I think it would be a little bit silly for me to actually... jeopardize the $460 that I've already made. There will be plenty of people who will have no accounts already today as a result of the overnight movement. And if I've been taught by my illness or anything, that would be to be a little bit more appreciative of not like these grand things, because I always used to be the person that goes for like the completely impossible goals and then achieving them as well, which is crazy. But to also maybe understand that, $400 is a pretty good day. It gets us plenty of biscuits for the doggos. And it gets us a, really nice dinner or something. So I'm just trying to be a little bit more realistic on prop this year rather than shooting for like $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 days. Because of the fact that I'm used to that somewhere else. Like whatever I'm used to, it does not apply to prop. And we have to just look at everything as a risk model that is scalable to whatever balance you're working with. So it's a huge challenge for me this year to be a little bit less pig-headed when it comes to chasing profits. Because I normally used to chase like $2,000 or bust, right? So I'm like, well... What use is it for me to kind of make 400? That's peanuts. So I'm trying to put my ego aside and to be okay with smaller positions, micros. So it's a learning thing. A winning position trading says, my dog is my first child. Hey, I only have dogs as children. Do you know that meme or that reel that's kind of kicking around as a trend where they're holding something that looks like a baby and they're like, oh man, I sacrificed so much and I gave you my body and, my body broke down completely because I birthed you, and then it pans to what they're actually holding and it's a dog. And then there's like a speech bubble and the dog goes, what the hell, man? Just get to the gym. I'm a dog. It's like, what's wrong with you? But yeah. But it says, I'll see you all another day. Need to work on my apps. Wishing I could become an educator and trainer for how to make apps. Hey, that could happen. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us, Abed. I am very pleased to see you here. And yeah, just keep grinding, man. That's what we're all here to do. All right. Any GSDs in those 8? No, they're all 1 Cavalier, 1 Pomeranian, and then there's 6 Cavapom kids. The story behind that is that when we adopted our first rescue dog back in 2005, he was a Cavapom, and he looked really unusual, and we loved him. He was kind of the perfect blend, or a little bit crazy and watchdog type, and the most loyal creature, cuddliest ever that you could imagine. And he didn't like strangers because of his past. So when he passed away, I was really looking forward to finding some Cavapoms, as I learned they're very rare because they're considered like whatever designer dogs. But for me, Cavaliers break my heart because they have so many health issues. We actually have a good one, Lenny the Cavalier. He's obviously already in his early teens. He's beaten all the odds of the average lifespan of Cavalier being 9 or 10. But at the same time, I am aware of how much health problems they can have, and they break my heart. I honestly don't think I can have another pure Cavalier because of that. And then the Pomeranians, we actually were lucky to find a kind of a half rescue female Pomeranian, and she's bigger. She's what's known as a throwback Pomeranian, so she sort of looked like a small version of my original dog Minton, but a little bit like maybe about let's say half the size, but still bigger than a Pom, right? She's still about 16 pounds or something, so she's not tiny at all. And she was completely smitten with our Cavalier. It was more than obvious that she was like completely head over paws for him, and so was he, because he was grieving for our old dog, and he was like a shadow of himself. Didn't like being an only dog at all. So when we brought her, they just got on like a house on fire. So after about a year and a half, she kind of became a wifey, first and foremost, and we let them mate because it was a calculated decision. We did all the health tests and stuff, and we never had the intention of selling anybody. But we were also told that they can see 2 puppies. It was also COVID lockdowns, like really weird times. So on the scan, they could see 2. And we're like, okay, well, we could do 4 dogs, right? That's all right. And on the day 6 came out. So it's like, so now we're joking that she's an overachiever, right? Because she's like, you wanted 2, I give you 6. I just need to let the Cavalier out because he's scratching to go outside of the room. Back in 2 seconds. All right, we back. Yeah, so we kept everybody, and now we're a crazy house of 8 dogs. I've also said, I think just the other day, big dogs for me are not really an option because I'm a very small woman, and if something goes wrong, because they're animals, they're not like humans. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to control the dog physically. If 2 of them get into a fight or something, I want to be able to step in as the alpha leader or protector, however you want to call it. But as their guardian, you want to be able to make sure there's no shenanigans there. And if I had GSDs, no chance in hell that I could do anything, right? I could just stay there and cry while they're eating each other. So yeah, I love GSDs though. They are probably the most intelligent dogs that you can ever imagine, and it's Yeah, it's just they're too big. They're too big for me. So yeah. Yeah, so George Williams says, lost my last Cavalier at 10 due to the heart. Yeah, exactly. Like everybody who I talk to and has Cavaliers, by the time that they're 9, 10, they're already very sick. Lenny only got the heart murmur at 10, and now obviously he's 3.5 years on. He's got into heart failure last November. He's coughing, but so far he still has a good quality of life. As long as that is happening, we're not going to do anything, but yeah. All right, let's say DJ Run says, hey D, you often mention how people struggle to understand CL movement, and I admittedly don't do well with crude oil price action. Can you generalize how you approach it, since correlation is still high? Yeah, so crude oil is very time driven. You know how I say time of day is a level? Crude is probably one of the biggest culprits for that saying. They love to hedge into the close of things, right? So when you get to the London close, usually there is a movement into the London close that typically causes a pretty big reaction in crude oil to the opposite side. And, you know, up until that point, it looks like you're in a nice trending market. Everything's like looking super peachy and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to make so much cash. And then in the blink of an eye, it just goes whoosh. And takes out everything. So if you know the time, roughly those 90 minutes when to expect that, you will not be expecting like the breakout that you might have entered to last. So you can absolutely do a breakout, just make sure to know that that is a scalp and that is actually against the statistical probabilities of what crude oil normally does at that time of day. I'm not going to say that you will never find like sustained auctions, actually Thursday, so tomorrow, you typically find more trending days than others, and that's usually a result of the inventories report that comes out today, and then the next day the macro side sort of positions themselves in light of the new report. So if you're looking for trending days, probably safer, not safe, but safer to look for a one-sided auction on Thursdays. So. And then you also have Mondays and Fridays that on crude oil typically do the opposite of what the rest of the week does. So it's like you get to Thursday, it's been trending lower, and you're like, right, so it's just going to keep going lower. And then Friday comes, they take some positions off into the weekend, and you get crude in a big uptrend. So you're like, what happened there? But it's that kind of interplay of crude oil positioning throughout the day. And then in this time of the day, usually if you see a big move in the downside direction, there's usually a huge ping back. However, not all the way. It typically pings back to roughly like 50% of the London initial balance and then starts consolidating until NYMEX opens. And then NYMEX does a whole bunch of weird stuff during the first 30 minutes, typically what we call a head fake. So the first half hour usually goes the wrong way. So again, if you're looking at orbs or something and you're thinking, yes, I've caught a nice long move, the next 30 minutes comes along and it just runs you through. But it's so directionless, like that first hour. It's the first 30 minutes, especially on crude oil. So I literally like to just stay out of that. All right. Okay, let's have a look. Oh yeah, and then another hedging time would be in the last sort of 90 minutes before NYMEX settlement. So again, if you've had a big trend, or even if it wasn't a big trend, let's say it was a more neutral day type, but it kind of went up from the London close, you can actually fade that as well. So, you know, not every day, obviously context has to be attached to it because, you know, if you have some bigger levels further up, they would try and reach that, and then the sell-off is not, or the you know, rally is not going to be necessarily as big. And then the later it gets in the day, the less likely the full failed auctions will rotate to the opposite side of IB. So by the time that we get to, let's say, New York lunchtime, so 12 p.m. Eastern, if you haven't had a proper like failed auction, or at least already inside the NYMEX initial balance and you're kind of floating in the middle of it, it's likely that you're staring at a 50% pullback and a continuation rather than a proper reversal. Keith says, there was a lady in my neighborhood yesterday pushing her puppy in a baby carriage, walked around the block 4 times. Well, the puppies in strollers, you can't actually get these dog strollers. I don't have one, but I've seen people with very old dogs have the puppy prams effectively, but they're also for senior dogs. Now puppies, I don't know how young the puppy was, but if the puppy has not had all of its shots, you still need to expose it to the outside world, but it cannot come into contact with other dogs, the ground. Otherwise, you can have some horrible viruses like the parvo, which is very fatal, to the tune of like 80% of dogs that get it, especially puppies, they will die out of it. So, you know, until the puppy has had all the shots, she's actually taking some precautions and being pretty responsible. But, you know, if Lenny loses the ability to walk or something, I will absolutely get a little pram. So I will be one of those Muppets pushing the senior Cavi in the pram. Technical trader Guy says, hey, I come from trading Forex. I had a good trade on silver futures yesterday evening on my Topstep account, but noticed that micro silver tick value is worth a lot. Do I always need to buy one contract? Yes. So in futures, you cannot buy less than one contract. Silver micro is not a true micro. Silver micro is based off of the fact that the large silver contract is probably one of the largest contracts around, and one tick in the big silver is $25. Obviously, in the volatility that we're seeing, that's like a hell of a risk, and you just won't survive. Micro silver is $5, but most of the other micros, like micro gold, micro crude, micro copper, they're like $1 per tick or like $1.25 in case of micro copper. But silver is not a true micro. They have actually come up with, let's call it nano silver, 100 ounces. Unfortunately, the volume in nano silver has not been enough for the brokers to actually put it in as a tradable instrument. So sadly for now, you know, I'm not trading silver now. I trade it every so often as well, but when I need to risk like $1,600 on one trade, that becomes a little bit too much for these sort of accounts, so I stay away from it until the volatility comes back. Not a dumb question at all, by the way. It's a very good question, especially seeing how you come from Forex. We can do these like half nano contracts that are 0.01 or 0.02. I traded Forex from 2007 till 2012, so I'm pretty familiar with how that works. But yeah, so you always have to do one contract. There is no half contracts, there's nothing, it's always one or two. So sadly, it's gotten a little crazy, right? So just be careful of risk of ruin when trading things that are not true micros and they're moving a lot for this part of the year. VWeb George is here. Hello. Good morning. He says, I have a Boston Terrier. He bit my son's ear when he was a puppy, so we named him Tyson. I love that. He's awesome. He'll play, but you throw a blanket over him and he's like a bird, goes right to sleep. Yeah, mine do that as well. We have a bit of a lazy dog called Astrid Mimi. She's beautiful. She's like a teddy bear. She's got a massive overbite, but she just sits there constantly with her tongue out. And she's so chill normally, but she does bark at the cows. However, the others go and run outside to like chase stuff, even though they can't reach them because it's a different farm. And she would just sit on the sofa, do a couple of barks, and then nothing. But I tried putting a blanket over her head, expecting that she's gonna come out of it. She just sat there, and I'm like, "Are you gonna like try and get out?" Because that's supposed to be like the intelligence sign as well. She did not move at all. So I'm like, is that like being stupid, or does she really not care? So now I don't know, because she's actually a very trainable dog. She's actually pretty bright. She knows everything. So I was a bit confused that she didn't try to get out. I pitched it to her laziness though, because she's the laziest dog I've ever had. And there's nothing wrong with her. There's nothing wrong with her. We checked everything. She's just like, I'd rather sleep. One of my vets said that she's a queen. So that was quite funny. Another question. Hey Dee, I know you dislike beginners. I don't dislike them. I just think it's a waste of time for me and you, listen, if somebody asked me like a super beginner question, like, is a swing high still a swing high if it's broken, or like something along those lines, I feel that you can find that answer for free. You don't need me, you don't need Topstep, you don't need anything. Just go and Google, and there'll be plenty of kind of Reddits and Forex Factory and like a whole bunch of forums that you can go to read about that. So, it's not about disliking beginners. Okay, I'm not too versed in options, but how do calls and puts work? So calls and puts are dealer positioning and overall positioning of the options players. Now, institutions also use options to do some of their hedging and protection of either downside or upside risk, right? So when you see areas or prices and strikes with high open interest, that means that there's a lot of eyes on it, and depending on the kind of volatility and the environment that we're in, most times you would expect those larger options levels to be almost like an invisible support and resistance. So rather than Asia going up to, let's use crude oil for this purpose. Instead of Asia going all the way down to 92.21, and then you saying, well, Asia created the support at 92.21, I would say that I could already see where the option guys were, and they were at 92. So naturally the price is not to the tick, right? So it's a little bit more fluid than that. It's not an exact science. Everything is a zone, as we always say. But when you see them positioned a certain way, you can actually make a very educated guess that is probably going to be the stopping point. The opposite of that is, like, let's say that we've had a gamma wall somewhere near these levels, like let's say 112 was a gamma wall. In light of everything that was happening, and let's say that it was a put wall, so a lot of puts that are standing there, I would read that as the institutions having protective puts in order to protect them from downside risk in light of crude oil going back to some normal prices, right? So then you will be looking at sort of a long squeeze, right? So the longs went up and up and up and away, and then when the news came out of ceasefire, the protective puts kicked off and they drove the price all the way down. That would be a squeeze to the downside. So whenever that happens from a gamma level, that means that the dealers were most likely either short puts or short calls at those important price points. When you're shorting a call, it's basically like being short at a particular level, right? You don't want the prices to rise higher than that. If they rise higher than that, the dealers then have to effectively keep buying in order to remain flat. Let's just call it flat, because their job is not to make directional punts. Their job is just to remain perfectly positioned to provide transactions without actually skewing their overall position to either side. Does that make sense? So when they are aiming to have one core position, they have to see whether they're overhedged or underhedged, and then that's how you create these intraday options flows that in turn give us the ebb and flow of the price action that we see. So when you understand how the options guys are positioned, you can actually have a very good guess of what they're about to do based on how the price is behaving. So most of the times, prices with large open interest, meaning a lot of volume, they will be some sort of future stopping points, kind of like invisible support and resistance, peek into the future, if you will. The best that you will get to, the closest you will get to a crystal ball in this business. But even that is not the end of the story, right? Because anything can and does happen. So the markets are very fluid and in a constant state of change and flux. This is where situational awareness comes in. So if any one of my bigger put or call walls starts to break down, and the price quite obviously starts sustaining with a lot of conviction and a lot of volume that keeps pushing away from that level without any kind of looking back, that's when you know that some sort of a squeeze is happening, okay? Today, the squeeze to the upside is 100. So if they ever get some bad news again, and you start seeing the price hanging above 100, that would be the closest to a gamma wall today, because it's a mega call wall. Now, I didn't say that that's a gamma wall because I do believe that 90 qualifies more to be a gamma wall. It's not like a complete exact science. You know, you have to see at which point the gamma kind of skews to 0, and then at which point you will see them sort of having to re-hedge, if that makes sense. But yeah, as long as, like, let's assume that they are short puts at 90, so as long as the prices stay above it, they can do the mean reverting, right? So as soon as the price gets closer, they will keep going into the buying mode, so they will buy more positions. If the price gets very far away, they might be a little bit overhedged, so they might sell some of that towards that level, and that's how you create the mean reversions, right? Yeah, so the options chain, it's a doozy. You know, it is a bit difficult to understand, but endlessly useful once it actually clicks how it all works, because you can see what the dealers are doing. And therefore, even if you lose a trade, it's never a matter of, oh God, what have I done? I've been wrong. This is terrible. It's like, oh, okay, so they were interesting. They got messed up as well, because the dealers can be wrong too. And this is where you see amplification of the moves. So let's say that something happens, we go above 100. Nobody's expecting that today during a ceasefire, right? And they will be caught red-handed. So what they have to do, keep buying. And the more price rises away from 100, the more they're going to have to keep buying. That amplifies the movement in the same direction. But outside of that, you know, semi-apocalypse back on the table, market conditions, you will see them maybe approach 100, maybe smash through it a little bit, and then drip back the other way. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. All right, let's see. Did I miss something? Andreas is so funny to see a fluffy happy tail in the background. Yeah, that's the puppy cam. We have the puppy cam at all times. All right, lost on the narrow. When I used to trade oil 10 a.m. Eastern after New York Open, would get movement. Yeah, that's kind of been still the case, and it still gets movement, but it's typically not the direction that crude oil ends up in, if that makes sense. There's always a head fake. Yair also says, I've noticed it at 9 p.m. US, it does a big move. That would be the Shanghai exchange. So the Shanghai exchange is usually metals. So today it was everything, right? But that was news. So yeah. Strategic Silver says, I traded 1 ounce gold. It traded well. Yep, I've been getting some reports from some friends who have started to trade 1 ounce gold, and it's apparently it's liquid enough. I don't know. John Hoagland says, good morning. Good morning, John. Very good to see you as usual. Will they do a microplatinum future? No, I doubt it. So platinum is already a very thin product that doesn't have that much volume in it anyways, at the best of times. To bring out a micro platinum for what is not really a retail product, really, like if you trade platinum, most times you have to be trading platinum, right? There aren't too many speculators in platinum. Usually it's the users and the producers of some sort of precious metal products that will be using platinum for their own sort of hedging purposes. So I don't think that they will ever bring out microplat. Krishna is saying, what D, while on this topic, please show us how you got your wall levels through an API ping that costs almost $2,000 a month. So not really something that is that cost efficient for people. Luis Martinez with a risk question. How does Topstep hedge against our big winners? I'm not sure they do. They have a live prop desk. Typically prop desks are there for their traders to generate alpha, not for Topstep to hedge against them on the prop side. So I'm not a part of the risk team. I'm just an on-air talent, a mere mortal. So I'm going to say they don't. Again, a guess, because I don't know. You can ask Mick, maybe, if they do that, but I don't think they do. It's a prop desk. It's not, it's not like trading against your own traders. That would be not the definition of prop. Let's put it that way. How do I calculate the option stop loss? How do you calculate option stop? Where will percentages go? You're talking about implied volatility. So implied volatility you can actually find on Mon-Thurs. They are marked 1 day min and 1 day max. That's what the projection is. And just like the options chain, they are projections, not necessarily connected to the structure that already exists, right? So let's say that you're at all-time highs in a product. You will still have the projected movement to a certain level based on that implied volatility. But yeah, you can use the IV for the overall day to project how far up and down. Now, personally, for long options, my stop loss is the premium. Now, when I'm doing things like calendar spreads or anything different, that's usually involves at least 2 legs, and then one of them will be capping the overall profit, but you're kind of looking to collect premiums then. You're not really looking for a super directional movement. And you would maybe argue that one of those is a stop. But to me, most of the time, if I'm running a short call, I will typically let it do whatever. I will watch it like a hawk in case it goes wrong, but at the same time, I'm never so oversized in the options to risk the majority of the account on a short call or short put, right? Because they have technically unlimited amount of risk, especially the short calls, right? So yeah, part of my options are very risky, and again, they take a while for you to fully understand how all of the Greeks work and stuff, but yeah, for me, I don't necessarily always have an opposing leg to act as a stop, because every time you remember, options work by premiums, so you're either selling an option to gain a premium, or you're buying an option to pay a premium for maybe bigger movement, right? So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And for long options, I really don't see a point of stops, because the premium is your stop, effectively. Best DJ in town says, Deeyana, what band did your father used to play in? So my dad was one of the 4 frontmen for a parody folk rock band in former Yugoslavia called, in translation, Rockers from Morava. Morava is a river, and in Serbian it's Rockeri s Moravu, because they kind of made fun of the southern accents, and they did sketches, comedy sketches. But he was a multi-instrumentalist. Guitar was his first instrument, but he played everything. He was actually an amazing singer as well. So yeah, he was a part of 4 people, and then one of them unfortunately passed away in a car accident, and then the 3 of them carried on from 1982 all the way through till 1989, I think, which is when my dad went into big business and stuff, and he had his own sort of multinational companies and stuff, and partners in Japan, partners in Germany, whatever, and he basically went into retail. Alright, do I subscribe to the spot gamma for those levels? No, spot gamma is only equities, so that serves no purpose for me. So I need to have commodities, which is why Mon-Thurs is one of the first sort of few companies, or I don't know whether there's another company actually that has commodities options, but yeah, they're the only ones that offer a really, really wide choice of products. So yeah. JKX98 says, I thought you were German. Well, that's a new one. I'm not German. Not German. Best DJ in town says, I lived in Belgrade for 6 years when I was a kid, and I'm 15 now. Still listen to a lot of Yugo bands. Thanks. Well, if you were there when you were a kid, so I'm guessing you must have been there when Rockeri Moravo were pretty popular. They were one of the biggest bands in Yugoslavia, right? They sold like 20 million records. A lot of their jokes that they made, they kind of seeped into the culture. And I like as a kid, and even as a teenager, I had people telling me my dad's jokes from like their shows and stuff. So it was a weird upbringing. I don't have a rags to riches story, unfortunately. I wish I did, but I don't. However, my dad made sure that we weren't super entitled. So, for example, when I got into music, I had to buy my own instrument. So I had to, and true, I worked in a shop and stuff, and I worked in various places. But then I started doing gigs at 14, and then I wanted a new saxophone because I was playing sax back then. And I asked him for a new sax, and sorry, my dogs just saw something. I asked him to buy me a new saxophone, and he said, "No, you have to earn it." So I was like, "Oh, great. Let me just go and close the door." The rest of the pack is back from doggy school. That's why the ruckus is happening. So he just told me, no, I gave you one, but for, the real professional instrument, go and earn it. So I did that. So yeah. Nitish says, Dee, I thought you were from South Africa. Oh my goodness. Any other guesses? I know that my accent is like so ambiguous. It's like a weird blend of British, American, and I do have a best man. We have a best man who is South African. We also have a lot of Australian friends, so maybe just all of that. Because I'm a musician, I tend to take on people's accents, and over the years it just like sort of went blending into me. The ones I can remember, Group Magazine, Besmas, Mijanec, Lepa Brena. Okay, so Lepa Brena was right up there. So if you, let me just give you. So look up them. I bet that you will recognize it, right? Because it's they were touring with Lepa Brena at one point, so they were all going on tours and stuff. I actually worked with a composer called Zahar, who you may know, because the Astrid is barking in front of my. Because he was the one who wrote all the Lepa Brena songs, right? I know him really well. I was his sound engineer and a studio musician from when I was like 18. We still stay in touch. He actually goes and visits my mom every so often because him and my dad were like really close. So again, I had like really weird upbringing and like the Yugoslavian scene of all the people who are famous. I don't know whether like you are from there, but there used to be a magician guy who was like super famous. He used to come to our house like all the time. So, and Stefan Milenkovic went to the same music school as me. So, yeah, a lot of connections there. It's quite funny. All right, Doom Lord says Lepa Brena forever. How do you know? What's going on there, man? We need band photos. My band or my dad's band? You can look him up. Like, he's on Wikipedia, for Christ's sakes. Like, seriously. We can have a look. So they were like, make sure that you understand, they were making fun of God, somebody's got a stream cloud as well. They were making fun of the Southerners. And after 1989, my dad left them. But let me see if I can... Maybe... What's going on here? Alright, so I'm just going to drag this in here. So that was them, you know, all like funny, eh? This is my dad. So that's Barney. And here's him again. Am I blocking that? So that's him, that's him, that's him, this is him. And yeah, so if you go on his Wikipedia page, which is hilarious, it's probably going to be in unfortunately it's in Cyrillic letter, but I can read Cyrillic, but obviously you can't. But yeah, this is my dad, 18th of August 1946. Unfortunately we lost him 12th of January, obviously. But yeah, he's got a... Now, when I said on my Facebook that he died, suddenly, or in the next 24 hours, all of the former Yugoslavian newspapers picked up my post, because I know a lot of journalists from back in the day, right? And my mom, before then, she was like, well, I need to do the obituary, but because all of the former Yugoslavia announced it, there was really no need. I got calls from people that I haven't heard from in like years. I have no idea how they got my English number. My phone was ringing for like 3 days straight. It's like madness. And he hasn't done the music thing properly since probably 1992, right? It was insanity. It was a complete insanity. I could not believe that he still had that sort of power and interest. But yeah, it was a weird upbringing, let's put it that way. I grew up as a daughter of a pretty famous dude in former Yugoslavia. Alright, so I won't be doing any trades now. I'm going to be missing the weirdness for the COMEX Open and NYMEX Open because we don't know what's going to happen. It might get completely bonkers, crazy. So I'm going to chill out, try and keep as much of this as possible. And you will see me for group coaching. I may even not do any other trades today. We'll see. No promises. But maybe if there's like a high probability failed auction in crude or something to the downside, so upside auction fails, maybe, just maybe I might do something. But I'm going to try to position the rest of my day with the news. So even if we're like drifting up and down, maybe sniping the lows of the developing values for gold and copper, and sniping maybe VWAPs or developing value highs to the upside, preferably if they're somewhere around 97, 98. If they start to go lower than 90, that will be the cause for all of the dealers who might be running some short puts there to start selling even more. So we might see some quick acceleration there. And then downside, we do have 85 as the, you know, pretty decent area when we might stop today. Just a punt, just a suggestion. It's kind of like crude Hogue's weekly kickoff levels. It doesn't have to mean that we'll get there. It doesn't have to mean we'll stop there, but it would make sense that that's like the biggest area underneath 90 that might bring us further movement. Until that happens, 92 and 90 area is a big zone, would be an area where I would consider becoming a buyer with the pinch of salt that is against the entire ceasefire. I would much more prefer to go up to 97, 98 and then to try and short there. So yeah. Again, not a single service, just my plan, how I'm looking at the markets. But whenever I see jammed up like options that are pretty relevant and have a lot of anomalies around them, I basically like to use that sort of like a chop zone, right? So if we get up over 97, I'm expecting some chop up to 100, and then all of that zone becomes a potential area either for scalps or for bigger reversals back down to 92. All right, that's all I have for you today. I'm not going to be doing any trades now, so caution into the open. I really suggest that you stick away from opening any trades in the very first 15 minutes just to see what they want to do with all this. It's going to get a little crazy. And then maybe if they establish the new ranges, like even if you have a big move straight off the open in the equities, you know, as a P or B shaped day, you can maybe look at that developing distribution curve for your future trades. So yeah. Do I trade Bitcoin? I do not. I'm too old for crypto. I am 45, be 46 this year, and I am not, I don't know, I tried, I don't like it. It looks too much like equities, and yeah. Anyway, let's finish it up. Oh, Doomlord says I'm Bulgarian. Duh. They still blast some of those songs at clubs. I know, they still play them. It's like, it blows my mind, man. And everybody knows who they are. Like I say, oh yeah, you know, Bane, he was my dad. And they're like, oh my god, no way, Bane Rocket. And I'm like, yeah. It's a weird situation. All right, it's going to be a challenging day for sure, Doomlord Trader says. But yeah, it's have I looked at Natgas? No, not today. Natural gas to me is only like winter time or summertime when everybody's smashing air conditioning, because it kind of increases the natural gas things. So yeah, we're sticking away from that gas for now. To me, it's a bit too slow. It's moving, but you would need to like hold it for a number of hours. And I just, at the moment, I've got my crude back, and I've got my copper. Copper, it's kind of midway. So I don't think that nat gas is in that crazy part of the year where it's like just smashing to one side with quite high velocity. It's like in its slower sort of menopause moment where it's like, yes, we're going one way, but you can stay in a trade for 3 hours and still only get 10 ticks. It's probably the only product right now where I would be okay running the large NG contract. I don't know whether they restricted that as well, but to me, the volatility in natural gas has not been crazy at all. So yeah. All right. Boys and girls, that is all from me today. This was the metal markets. You will see me in group coaching a little bit later at 12 p.m. Central. That's 6 p.m. London time. In the meantime, stay very, very cautious into the open. Try not to click buttons as soon as it opens because it's going to be crazy. Yeah, let's see what the day brings. This is going to be very, very interesting. This was the metal markets. I'm Marcus Stalker D, and I shall see you in a little while. Take care.